Me coming out as a full-blown conservative, which I am not ashamed of, I think we need to have more guts about it, was probably
100%.
going to cost me certain opportunities. Certain people may not like me. I may be off limits. I get
Right.
it. It's a sacrifice you have to make.
What's up, everybody? What's up? It's your boy, Mr. Willis. Welcome to another episode of What You Talking About, Willis. As I always do, I'd like to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for allowing me to do this, give me the resources and ability to just speak my mind. Also, I'd like to thank my followers from day one, my subscribers from day one. You guys have been awesome. As you know, I started with 1 subscriber, and now we're almost to 600. So keep sharing, keep reposting. Those that's new here, welcome to the show. This is where we speak the truth. We cause chaos, one truth at a time. But enough about me, all right? I got another treat for y'all. If y'all haven't seen the last episode with my boy Zeke, go check that episode out. But I got a very, very esteemed guest on the show today. I've been a huge fan. Hosted the main event on KIEV 870 and then later XTRA AM 1150, a 3-hour show dedicated to boxing from 96 to 99. Joined one of the first boxing websites, House of Boxing, in 99, and then later became one of the founders of Max Boxing that started in 2001 to 2014. In 2014, he was the lead columnist for UCNLive.com, was a boxing reporter for ESPN.com. I should start bowing to this man right now. ESPN.com from 2018 to 2020. Has written for Ring Magazine, International Boxing Digest, and Boxing News. The co-host of the 3 Knockdown Rule with Mario Lopez, which has become one of the most popular boxing podcasts in the past several years. SK, Steve Kim, has served as an announcer and analyst for Ring TV, Thompson Boxing, 360 Promotions, CBS Sports Network. I know him from Jason Whitlock's Fearless. Honestly, that's when I first started hearing your voice and talking about some good stuff. So thank you, man. Welcome to the show.
Wow, this is like an episode of Steve Kim. This is your life. If I ever need a resume, I'm just going to call you while I'm at Kinko's. Just have you read all that off, and I'll just print that bad boy off, and I'll be on LinkedIn real soon.
Well, listen, man. Thank you for being on the show. You're the man. I'm a big fan. It's an honor to be talking to you. Like I said, I heard your voice from Whitlock, so tell Whitlock that I'm borrowing you for an hour or so. So tell him not to be too mad. Happy football season to you, man. I know you're a Hurricanes fan, man. So are you more of a college football fan or are you more of an NFL fan?
I would say college. When the Rams moved the first time after the 94 season, it kind of sealed it for me. I'm kind of an NFL orphan. I have not gone back to the Rams. Once we're divorced, we're divorced. We're not Liz Taylor and Richard Burton. When the Rams won the Super Bowl in 99 a couple years ago, I didn't celebrate it. And let's be honest, the Hurricanes have won a lot more titles than the Rams ever did, even though it's been a while. By the way, I love the fact you're wearing Redskins gear.
Of course.
None of that Washington Football Club or what the Commanders. I hate that. That's just terrible.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the name, but it's what I got to deal with, man. I don't have any other option, man. We've had so many football names in the past decade. I was a big just Washington football team guy, so I'm good with that. Yeah. But it's always going to be Redskins to me for sure, man. In this house, we West Virginia fans, so I know you're getting ready for the college football season.
West Virginia.
I hear some high praise.
Major Harris. Major Harris, 1988. Still my favorite Mountaineer. And you know what's funny? A couple of weeks ago, I went on a deep dive because it showed up on my YouTube channel, and I started liking the videos. Don Nehlen is such an underrated coach. I mean, that's a guy that had to build that program every year. It was a true developmental program where every 4 to 5 years he'd build up a team And in 88, they played for the national title. In 93, they went undefeated before the Sugar Bowl. They had some really good teams in the 90s. And unfortunately, now with the transfer portal, I don't know if a program like that can exist because they're going to get picked apart of their best players. But I have a lot of respect for that West Virginia program, from what Jeff Hostetler, famous Amos Zaraway, Ronaldo Turnbull, that was another guy. The most underrated guy, Mark Bulger, may have had the best NFL career of all your quarterbacks. So go Mountaineers.
Look, that's gonna be singing praises in my house. So you're gonna have to come over there on the weekend and watch some of the game.
I'll wear a musket hat. Well, I'll wear a musket hat when I watch a game.
Actually, I think Tavon just retired from the NFL.
Tavon Austin was great. Geno Smith.
Geno Smith, yeah.
Halfway through 2012, I was crowning him the Heisman Trophy. I thought after that Baylor game where they had that 77-70 game, I said, this guy's going to win the Heisman. I forgot about the rest half of the year. But, West Virginia is one of these programs that I'm very wary for and fear for, is that with all this realignment, there's a lot of good football schools that are not going to have a place at the table of this new super conference realignment that I absolutely hate. I actually like the regional conferences. I like the fact you could have a Cinderella school. And unfortunately, this progress has killed off things like the Pac-12. And I'm an LA guy. I mean, it is actually surreal, Mr. Willis. This year, there is no Pac-12. There isn't.
Yeah.
UCLA and USC are in the Big Ten. I absolutely hate it.
But that is just, how do the schools manage the traveling for the students? Like, it doesn't even make sense. West Virginia is in the Big 12, and they're actually saying it might be Houston and the Mountaineers for the conference chip. But then again, like, the SEC is taking over everything. It's like 27 teams in the SEC.
Well,
it's crazy.
Unfortunately, I think what's going to happen, and I was tipped off on this a couple of years ago by someone who knows a lot more than I do. Okay, someone that actually works at the network level. Unfortunately, this is going to become the AFC and the NFC with the Big Ten and the SEC. And really, it's about Fox and ESPN. And I'm thinking to myself, look, I get it. The ACC's in trouble. That's the conference that my school is in, or my program. But you look at the Big 12, Mr. Willis, I actually think it's a good conference. Arizona's really good. Oklahoma State's really good. Kansas State. And I don't think that Colorado's going to have an easy run of it. I don't understand, why do we just need two mega conferences? Part of the allure of college football was that it was very much unlike the NFL. Now we're just going to have basically two versions of the NFL.
Pretty much. And everybody's getting paid now. So, people are staying for 1 year. There's no loyalty. This is kind of why I like college basketball more than college football, because I think some of the players stick around more, some of the blue blood basketball teams. So, as a college basketball player myself, I still kind of favor college basketball, but I've grown to love college football a little bit more.
The one and done has hurt the NCAAs. There used to be a time, and I've talked about this with Jason Whitlock. By the time you got to the Sweet 16, when I was growing up in the 80s, mid-90s, I kind of knew just about every single starter on those teams. And if you go through the rosters, every single Sweet 16 seemed to have at least 2 to 3 NBA players, and the really good teams would have 5 to 7 or 8.
Yeah.
And by the time they got to the draft and they did the lottery, I knew basically at least the first half of the first round, if not most of it. I'll be honest with you, Mr. Willis. I don't even know some of these guys drafted 3rd, 4th, or 5th. I really don't.
I don't,
and
especially for NBA.
Where everyone kept talking about the players should have the right to make money at age 18. In theory, I cannot argue that. However, even the 1 year that Zion Williamson had at Duke was an unbelievable marketing tool. Yes. If he would have just came out of South Carolina as a high schooler and been the number 1 draft choice, I don't think a lot of the country would have actually known who he was.
Yes.
Those 5 months at Duke were actually very, very valuable to the marketing campaign and what a spectacular talent he is. Now, unfortunately, it's the last time he played any basketball, but that's neither here nor there. That's not the argument we're making.
I've seen recent pictures of my man. He's looking real thin. I know
Slim
you're in
down.
LA right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's thinning out. So I don't know what that is. I don't know. We'll see. I'm not a big NBA fan now. I was a huge T-Mac fan. I grew up in the late 90s, early 2000s basketball when every team in the Eastern Conference was good. Obviously I'm a hometown person, so I'm a Wizards fan. And it was just good basketball back then. Now, like I said, the NBA draft that just happened in June, I watched the first day. The first three draftees were all Frenchmen. Like this, I don't know who these guys are. But I know you're in LA, so I appreciate it. I heard that there were some UFO sightings out there in California. I was wondering if you seen anything. You want to report anything on your?
No, I haven't seen anything. I mean, unless you're talking about illegal aliens, I see them everywhere.
Yeah.
We all do. I don't.
Oh,
I don't
man.
know. Look, to think that we're the only living specimens in this whole galaxy would be a little bit obscene. And
Right.
I'll be honest with you, I've never actually seen an alien. I've driven, I think, around Area 51, but I mean, the closest I've ever seen a UFO is when I was a kid watching Close Encounters of the Third Kind, whatever. Remember that movie with Richard Dreyfuss?
Yeah.
I never really understood that movie as a kid. I just thought it had a big spaceship. I didn't really know the implications of it. But I'll be honest with you, I have not seen any UFOs. The most major occurrence that has happened in LA the last week and a half, 2 weeks, has been two separate earthquakes. And the second one last Monday was pretty substantial. We were rocking and rolling. But, as a native of California and really LA, we're kind of used to it. We really are.
Okay.
So it was okay. You get through it. Everything's in place and you move on with your life.
I'm thinking about 2010, 2011. We had an earthquake around here, which messed up the monument. I got to tell you what, man, as an East Coast guy, we don't do that around here. In the DMV, Northern Virginia area, we really don't do that around here.
You guys had an earthquake, really, in D.C.?
Yeah.
Didn't know you got those. Wow. Okay.
It was actually pretty bad where it messed up the monument that it had to, get some renovations to get all fixed up. But it was quite an experience. Before we get into the sports, though, thank you for sending me this video. I'm definitely a political guy of Don Lemonhead. All right, walking down the street. I'm gonna play it. I'm gonna play the video, and I got two theories about this because I don't know. He's trying to be relevant lately. I don't know why. After getting ousted out by everybody, and even Elon Musk, said, "No, we're done with you. I don't want nothing to do with you." I'm gonna play this video trying to see, or of him trying to see, or get people to.
We're here in Jersey, Atlantic City. Who do you support? Trump. I plead the fifth.
Trump for the win.
Tell me why.
I can't really call that right now, but I just feel like she's not good for president. She's good vice, but not for the actual lead role for the country.
Does it have anything to do with being a woman?
No. Yeah. Because I feel like women, nah, you're not going to give me that.
Your money's on Harris.
Yeah.
Who do you want?
Trump.
Why don't you like Harris?
She doesn't have any experience.
She's the vice president. She's a senator.
Yeah, no experience. No. She had no experience.
Well, I want Donald Trump. I just feel we need somebody that has a stronger background with the military and the world in general.
She was a prosecutor and an attorney general and a senator and a vice president. You're in a gambling town. Who's your money on?
I'm going to support the Democratic Party, but, Trump looked like he got it in the bag right now.
4 years ago, it was a lot better. I made a lot more money than I do now.
I know you feel that way, but that's not actually what the record shows. The economy is actually better under Biden. No, I'm serious.
Okay.
That's what the facts show.
CNN?
Okay, you know what?
No, that's not because I watch CNN. Trump or Harris?
Trump.
That's who's going to win.
That's who's going to win.
Who you support?
I support Trump. All the people that came to this country legally, it's not fair that they're letting all 10,000 to 15,000 people or 20,000 people here illegally. Have you seen San Diego? Yeah. They're coming off the boats, off the water right here, off the ocean. Did you know Biden was flying them in? Did you know Biden was flying them in? You didn't know that?
What do you Canadians think about what's going on here?
We think you're all nuts. We're just watching from afar and just enjoying the show.
All right, man. So thank you for sending that to me, man. That's great. Now, there's a theory I have here. He's trying to get relevant again, or maybe somehow he's red pilled, because I'm sure he asked more people, and there are probably some people in LA, in California anyway, that are Harris supporters. What do you think about that, man?
Well, as it relates to the bitter lemon, I don't think he's red pilled just based on the questions and the rebuttals that he had. For him to tell a gentleman, no, the economy is actually better. There's no metric that actually says that. And to tell an individual that's probably more working class than he is, that's the issue that I have with a lot of these pundits. They live on the ivory tower. They actually are completely out of touch with the American public. The average citizen that works 40 hours a week trying to make ends meet, they probably are not as impacted by the rising cost of groceries or any other service goods that you need to live. And yet they expect the average citizen to go along with them. I wouldn't have a problem with Don Lemon if he just asked who you voting for and just let people have their soapbox. But instead, when he does not get the answers that he feels are the appropriate, he tries to almost become like a campaign manager for the Harris administration. That's what I do not like, is that you have an agenda. Like, look, we all have our personal feelings, but if you want to get a word of the man of the street, Joe Public, ask the questions, stick the microphone in their face, and get out of the way. But he's literally trying to change minds. And look, you're not Obi-Wan Kenobi. You can't do the Jedi mind trick and then make these people turn blue. It's not. I don't get it. I think it's very dishonest what he does. And if you look at the actual metrics of the rising cost of everything and where much of our money has gone, and then there's the other thing, the actual policies of Miss Harris. She has been an abject failure as the hall monitor at the border. Bottom line.
Right. 100%. And as a reporter, you would think that you want to give the people an raw, honest message from just the general public, not to throw your little insights and then to try to sway them. And that looks like he was doing, like you were saying, like, all right, ask the question. If you're trying to get honest feedback from the general public, especially what I call, and don't be mad at me, SK, I call it the left coast. That's what I call it over there. But most of the people over there, they lean more to the left. You would think he would have, I think he thought he was going in with a more mindset that people are going to agree with him. Yeah. And then now he's shocked.
One thing I notice about these videos is when they do these type of formats, when they try to get like the informal Gallup poll, I notice something. When a white person says Trump, there's almost like this guilt trip. But when a black person says Trump, it's almost like a piece of them dies. They're like, we can't argue with this guy because he's black. Seriously. We can't do the white guilt. Yeah. Well, we can't do the white guilt because they're black. And I think there's this realization. But again, keep this in mind, though, Mr. Willis. I believe that there is a subtle shift of Trump support from black males. But when it comes to the females, nobody is more loyal to a fault to a political party than black women. That has been shown time and time again.
Well, if you think of any of the leadership in these movements, it's not been really a lot of black males leading. If you just talk about Black Lives Matter, for instance,
Black Lives Matter, yeah.
It's I don't want to get too deep in, but it's LGBT black women leading these things, and there's no strong male figure leading these things, and they can easily be manipulated.
Look at the leadership in places like, I believe, Baltimore. That's Marilyn Mosby. New Orleans had a black female mayor. The notorious Tiffany Henyard out of Dolton, Illinois, much smaller village. Mayor Shane Tao out of Oaktown. L.A. Karen Bass.
Right.
Look, it's not just a race identity. It's also a female liberal ideology that is highly leftist running many of these cities. So when they start talking about white supremacy and toxic masculinity, but here's the problem. Many of those jurisdictions that we just named have not been run by white men for years. Chicago's a little bit different. They went from Lori Lightfoot. Now think about this, Mr. Willis. Lori Lightfoot, they got worse in Chicago afterward. That's like having Rich Kotite as your NFL head coach. You fire him, and you don't get Bill Parcells. Yeah. You get someone worse than Rich Kotite. That's what they did with Brandon Johnson.
Oh, man. I talk about bad coaches. Trust me, man. I've been through my share of bad coaching. You know, like Mayor Bowser here in D.C., right? She's terrible, right? She's a terrible, terrible mayor. But speaking of wokeness and stuff like that, these leaders, I'm glad you brought that up because we transition. And I know you have a history in the sports world, man. And that's why I wanted to have you on.
Yeah.
And then, like, we have people like this guy, right? Right here. We have, I call him Squidward, you know what I mean? But that you got Colin Kaepernick. And in the sports world, I'm going to talk about a little bit. I think there's a little bit of bullying if you have more conservative values, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying you have to vote for Trump or support Trump, but even if you're just, let's just say you're independent, but you just have conservative values, but you speak on that, it's like you're going to get out. They're going to ship you out. But guys like this, right? And this guy right here, I got huge beef with this guy for years, right? Now, I didn't have a problem with him when he was just playing football and he went to the Super Bowl. I was actually a fan. He was in the era of RG3. It was RG3 and him and Russell, right? And 2012, and I'll get to RG3 in a second, but 2012 was the best like football year in a while. Why are these guys praised? And then let's just say other people, when they speak one thing that's against the norm, they're casted out.
Drew Brees was a great example, and it's really a shame that Drew Brees folded like a lawn chair. You know, because in the summer of 2020, maybe he had no choice. But yeah, Kappa Kunte wants to come back to the National Football League after all that he has said, all the rhetoric, the Netflix documentaries, the gestures.
Yeah,
look. When he ran out on the NFL workout in Atlanta in the fall of 2018, it was over. At that point, nobody took him seriously. And Mr. Willis, that was 6 years ago. He has not actually been on an NFL roster in 8. He's a distraction. And I think the term useful idiot comes to mind with him. And I said 100%. This and people don't like it. What he did was really pouting. And he tried to make it political because he got benched for Blaine Gabbert. And here's the thing. He had an opportunity to really be something, I guess, revolutionary. At this stage of your life, if you are really serious about the movement, playing ball should be the last thing on your mind. Have you started? This is the thing that I have about the BLM. And one of my friends in Philadelphia told me this. He said, Steve, I live in Philly. They have not started one STEM program. I've not seen one laptop. I've not seen one community center. I've not seen one basketball court put up in the guise of let's protect the kids. Same thing with Colin Kaepernick. He made a lot. The Colin Kaepernick revolution was really, really lucrative for him. He got a Nike deal. He was able to leverage several things. Got the Netflix documentary where he threw the NFL under the bus. But I noticed right around the time when he walked out and did the end around on the NFL organized workout, finally former players who were black started saying, we can't take this guy seriously.
Yeah.
We can't.
Yeah. I mean, just the backpedal of everything. You can't really say owners in the NFL are racist and then compare the NFL combine to what he was saying as a slave. Like, I'm trying to figure out, and I'm speaking on the black community, SK. It's crazy that rhetoric is being spit out, but you went through it. You profited from it. You try to say all white people are bad, but a whole white family raised you, took you as their own. You're not even theirs. They took you, and he made it to the American dream is making it to the Super Bowl as an NFL. There's NFL players that's never made it.
Mr. Willis, if you are a professional athlete and you want to play in the National Football League, that's an athletic endeavor. So you will have to go through a battery of physical tests to see if you can actually hold up and if teams want to give you millions of dollars, because it is an investment and it is a business arrangement. One of the
100%.
things that was maddening from the summer of 2020 was the movement from athletes like him, more than an athlete, as if somehow everyone in America that watched games had to somehow be in lockstep with all these guys politically and culturally. And my view is this. No. If I don't know you and we're not related and I only watch you on TV 16, 17 times a year, you're just an athlete to me. I owe you nothing. That doesn't mean I should be prejudiced. It doesn't mean I have a right to flip you off. Doesn't mean I have a right to throw stuff in your face. say nasty things on the internet, but you provide a service. There's never been a plumber that you hire, Mr. Willis, and your toilet backed up, and the guy just says, today I don't feel like working. I'm more than just a plumber. It wouldn't fly. It wouldn't let me just put it. If Anita Baker, if I pay to watch Anita Baker, and I'm like, oh God, I get to see her. She's gonna give me the best that she's got, and she walks out, and I'm like, what's going on with Anita? And she just stepped to the mic. I'm more than just a singer. I'd be like, time out. I paid to see you sing. To me, you're just a singer.
Yes.
That's it. But here's the funniest thing. How come that's not said anymore? What happened?
Well, LeBron started that, didn't he?
Right. And then I saw athletes like Kyrie Irving, who sometimes I'm really in agreement with, other times I am not. When he wouldn't take the vaccine as an individual, that was his choice. My body, my choice. Remember that one, Mr. Willis, right?
Yeah.
People, the same media members that were parroting that phrase were now like, you have to do it. Time out. Isn't he more than an athlete?
Yeah.
See the hypocrisy of this whole thing?
And you know what's crazy? There's these entities, NBA, ESPN, NFL, all these guys, they claim to support, black, athletes and stuff like that. Even when the girl that's going up against Caitlin Clark, which I don't watch WNBA like that.
Oh,
but,
Angel Reese.
Yeah,
Angel
when she went on and started crying and boohooing because people were getting on her for running her mouth, ESPN and a lot of dudes came and started back, like trying to support her. I'm like, she did this to herself, right? But the moment you step out of that, it's like, oh, they don't want nothing to do with you. And I think Colin Kaepernick did it wrong. I honestly think he should, with his woke ideologies, you would think that maybe he can get us ESPN analyst, job, since that's what they like to do. I'm surprised he didn't do that. I would think there'd be a spot for him there,
Here's my issue, though, with Kaepernick, even going back to the National Football League, because a lot of people have called it, like he did, a slave trade. It is capitalism, which is evil all of a sudden, right? The biggest power he could have is starting black enterprises and black businesses in black communities.
Right.
Not playing for a white owner, playing a game.
Well, I mean,
has he bought any property? Has he took out any leases? Has he given out any loans so the prospective people that look like him can get a head start on the process? See, this is what I hate is that, and Thomas Sowell talks about this a lot, that modern day activism is the most empty thing you can do because it's basically now reduced to doing a hashtag and doing a gesture like taking a knee.
Malcolm X. Talk about liberals. I mean, like LeBron James comes out there with a Malcolm X book. He doesn't even realize that he's part of the problem, right?
Is he on page 2 yet?
At least he could have read the back, right? At least he could have read the back and summarized it. But moving on, Sam Ponder, and I know you talked about this before. I know she was on the NFL. Again, I don't watch ESPN that much anymore just because I'm just kind of done with it. But I know she was on NFL, and I don't want to mess up her accolades. But she was more conservative, right? And they fired RG3 too, by the way, and we'll get into that. But me personally, I think that's kind of and maybe I'm wrong, maybe you can elaborate, it's kind of a smokescreen, right? Yeah. Because RG kind of did this to himself anyway. I think they were trying to, again, 2012, I was a big RG fan. I was a big RG3 fan. But as far as being an analyst, though, I couldn't stand the guy. But I think they were trying to get a way to get him out of there anyway. But what did she do wrong, right? And how? I mean, it's the culture there. Even when you were there, how does someone be able to be their own person in this kind of environment?
Well, I think the issue was she wasn't Sam Pander to the LGBTQ. Once she took that stance. And you're right. Maybe RG3 is a smokescreen. Maybe he's a DEI, not hiring, but a DEI firing. But I mean, once Samantha did that, you have to understand she's married to a former NFL player. They look happily married. They have kids, very traditional. She is a mother. So again, that stuff I've been told is rooted in white supremacy. Once she took that position, she probably made herself more vulnerable, or
Yeah.
she put herself in the crosshairs. I can tell you this from my experience. I was there at ESPN from 2018 to 2020. I actually
Yeah.
enjoyed my time there the first 12 to 14 months. But
Okay.
after the whole pandemic, the George Floyd situation, and social justice overtaking everything in our world, it became something very, very uncomfortable. And by the summer of 2020, I said to people, I'm out of here. I'm not
Yeah.
doing this. And it got to a point where if you tweeted out stuff like Thomas Sowell quotes, you would
Yeah.
be told to take that down.
See, my problem with that is people that have more left ideologies can say whatever they want.
Oh, they have
You
free
got
reign. They have
you
free
got
reign.
Pride Month, got the
Yeah.
transgender stuff going on, Black Lives Matter, all these support groups for all this stuff. Even now, Palestine and stuff like that. You get a Palestine and Israel stuff. If you're pro-Palestine, then they're really not going to mess with you, right? Talk about Israel a little bit, then they start getting on you a little bit. Like, how did you navigate?
Well,
I kind of want to hear your
easy.
insight. Like, how did you navigate that?
Easy. I had an escape plan. I just said, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
I know for a fact that there's a lot of employees at ESPN who are much higher up on the food chain, much more accomplished than I was, and Jason was one of them. We are not there at the same time, that are in agreement with our ideology. Whether you agree or disagree with us, they kind of are aligned with us.
Right.
But they're so entrenched, and they may not want to go out on their own. And let's face it, they probably made a lot more money than I did. I made decent money, but I was Steve Kim, not Stephen A. Smith, so I'm not in the same tax bracket. So it probably was easier for me to go. You have to understand, though, Mr. Willis, I was independent for so many years. I miss being independent. Being independent and essentially being your own boss, it is priceless, and I enjoy it.
Yeah.
You got to have some guts to say, you know what, I'm out of here. I'm going to escape Bristol. I started counting down the days because basically if you are not a highly liberal lefty who supports Democrats and their policies, you don't really have a future. There's absolutely not a glass ceiling. There's a cement wall right in front of you. And so that's why an L. Duncan can go out there in the middle of a game, halftime of a women's game, and talk about reproductive rights as you know, the abortion ruling. And I'm thinking to myself, this is insane. You are a sports network. This is not the ESPN that I grew up on. And the corporate culture at Disney, I think, has a lot to do with this. And so I remember I got into some trouble because when the Milwaukee Bucks during that bubble season were going to boycott, and they ran off the court because of Jacob Blake, that fine, upstanding citizen. And all I said to somebody, Chris Mannix, said, these guys are going to protest. And I said, what are they going to do? They're just basketball players.
Exactly.
And I was told, what the hell are you doing? My view is this. Well, wait a minute. I would still think that Milwaukee and Kenosha is still in a depressed state. If you actually really do the research on those jurisdictions, they have some real issues.
Yeah.
So I have a question 4 years later. What did those same Milwaukee Bucks players do for that area after the season ended? Nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
I remember for about a day, the NBA players were thinking about ending that season because there are more important things than basketball. Mr. Willis, I actually thought, wow, they do this, I will give them credit because now that's a true sacrifice. But once they got into those meetings and they all figured out, wait a minute. So if we walk out, that means our collective bargaining agreement is now null and void. You know what they said? Play ball.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the truth. That is the truth. They did not make any sacrifice. And if I hear one more story from these NBA players talking about how tough it was to play basketball in a bubble, you know what? Let me talk to the business owner that got shut down for 6 months. Right. That's what was tough. You at least got to make a living.
Right. Churches. Children couldn't go to school. Yeah. Children couldn't go to the playground. Socializing was gone.
Taboo.
Right.
It was taboo.
Yeah. People got empowered to tell on people who weren't wearing masks. Like, so I'm in law enforcement, and similar to you, there is a certain, you gotta tap around if you're going to be like me, right? Going to speak your mind. Now, me, I know I've already read policy. I know what I can do. This is my off time. I'm allowed to do what I want, right? I don't represent the department in any way. I don't, we've already talked about that. But in saying that, I have been called up to IA, and they've had my podcast brought up. I've been talked to different chiefs and stuff like that. And as long as I didn't violate policy, I'm like, why am I sitting here? You're just putting me on notice that you know what's going on. But the people that have complained, and sadly, I've been through 2014 where hands up, don't shoot, all the way to George Floyd. And I've been out there on the street dealing with people pretty much attacking me out there, right? I've been out there, and you should be telling people that's complaining that, hey, he's not doing anything wrong. I would think at ESPN or any of these, FS1, any of these places like that. Also, it's you as in a boxing background. I don't really see it there though, right? In the UFC boxing, I don't really see a lot of this.
UFC is highly conservative, and I think Dana White sets the tone. But Dana White's made it clear. He says, I believe in freedom of speech. I am not curbing anyone's thought process, whether I agree or disagree. Right. Real quickly, before I answer your question, has there been any more disastrous policy or movement than defund the police? It's been shown that every city or every municipality that has participated in that charade is worse off for it. And the people that are affected are people of color who are law-abiding citizens. And this goes all in part and parcel. It's like an umbrella effect. It's all under catch and release, soft on crime policies, no cash bail. And then now you restrict the movement or the ability of police to actually do their jobs. I saw one interview where Mayor Adams, another highly liberal guy from New York City, is complaining, well, we can't get enough police recruits into our office. Right, because you spent a dozen years demonizing these people in that profession. What did you think was going to happen? Okay? Exactly. So in terms of boxing, Mr. Willis, you're going to be surprised by this, and I've been surprised too. I first came on as a regular contributor to Jason Whitlock in the summer of 2001. So it's about 10 or 11 months after my departure from ESPN. I was doing some freelance work, making a living here and there. And then one day, Jason asked me to be on. I had a long-term relationship with him. Kind of casual, though. We weren't really all that close, but he knew that I was interested in the show. We correspond through direct messages. And after the first segment I did with him on Fearless, he said, Steve, I want you to be a regular contributor. That may be the best segment I have ever done. Where the hell have you been? And I said, I've been here. So I knew instinctively and logically my association with Jason was going to be an issue. Me coming out as a full-blown conservative, which I am not ashamed of, I think we need to have more guts about it, was 100%. Probably going to cost me certain opportunities. Certain people may not like me. I may be off limits. I get it. It's a sacrifice you have to make. But, however, it's also open doors. I get to be on with you. I've made some great relationships. And there have been a lot of people. Now, this is the thing that is stunning, Mr. Willis. There have been more than a few black guys in boxing that come up to me. I'll be at a weigh-in or whatever, and they'll be like, hey, Steve, what's up? Man, I really like your show with Whitlock. I go, what? I go, wait, you watch all the time. And I know, and I always joke, can you say it publicly or tweet? I go, no, I can't do that. I go, you know what? I get it. No. I get it. But there have been people that have said to me, or they'll text me out of nowhere, people I have not talked to in a long time. I still have good relationships. Just lose touch with them. Steve, love what you're doing on Fearless. And generally, they are minority men. Just leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, you said it earlier. There is a movement of black men that's moving towards the conservative mindset. I mean, when I first started talking about Wade 2013, 2011, there wasn't a lot of voices out. So I was kind of on an island. And before I started talking about it, Brandon Tatum and Candace Owens, those are kind of voices that were kind of getting elevated. Then I started to discover like Thomas Sowell and the history that there were guys that lived through these trying times that still thought the same way that I thought right now. I'm like, well, this is nothing new. People have been thinking like this.
Walter Williams is another one. God rest his soul. He was another. Now, I have to ask you, Mr. Willis, Were you
Yeah.
always conservative, or did you evolve? Because I used to be kind of liberal at one point in my younger, dumber days.
Yeah.
What was your evolution into all this, to this side of the fence?
So in my house, we were just more religious, right? I grew up in the church. We were Christian
Yeah.
Baptists. So my parents never really talked to me about uh politics. They never brought it up, right? My dad just instilled in me hard work, being respectful when you deal with law enforcement. Get out here, you're a man, you need to get out here making money, and stuff like that. So there's conservative values, but in the black community, everybody's like, you gotta vote Democrat, you gotta vote Democrat. And as I grew up in my teenage years and my young adult years, I got kind of swayed by that, because more of the popular people, popular athletes and stuff, they would say, that's the message. I voted for Obama the first time, right? He got elected. I'm running up and down the sidewalk. Hope we got a black president finally. It's not until I got in law enforcement and actually started to realize what it takes to be a police officer, right? Because growing up is like, stay away from the police. The police only want to just harass black folks and minorities, and that's what they're white supremacists. That's the government control, right? Once I got in there and realized that people are actually stupid, right, and the police is needed, and in my career so far, I've actually changed. I've saved lives. I've seen some crazy things. And it started to open up my mind. It's like I start to understand, like, things ain't what people are telling me, which led me into digging into what Obama was doing. I was like, this guy's really not doing anything, right, at all for us. He says he's going to do all this crap, he hasn't done anything. I didn't vote for him the second time, right? And then I started actually just being interested in what the parties were doing. Like, everybody's telling me to vote Democrat, but what are they actually doing? What are these leaders are doing? Look at the leaders. They don't do anything. All they do is race bait and take our money. That's all they do. And then you start looking at economy and way of living and the country, foreign policy, all this stuff. I started to dive into it. I read Thomas Sowell's books. He got into that. Very, very smart. I wish I could meet him. Very smart, man. You mentioned Walter Williams. He actually worked at a college near here. I didn't get to meet him, and he passed away, unfortunately, but I wanted to meet him. So that's kind of how I got my, red pill moment. And people started coming out more and more, like these podcasts started coming out. And, during the pandemic, everybody went to podcasts because they couldn't do anything. So I started podcast. Then this is when I stumbled across y'all's podcast, Fearless.
Yeah.
And that I listen to it all the time, man. I mean, great takes all the time and stuff like that. And
so, Mr. Willis, did you have a moment where you had to tell some of your friends and family, hey, guys, and this is what I call the inverse of the gay announcement, that you're coming out as conservative? Yeah. Hey, guys, I want to tell you something. Are you gay? No. I'm conservative. No! I mean,
no. It started before that. It started when I actually got in law enforcement, when I started supporting the police, because I'm actually one. I've had family members, and I'm not ashamed to talk about it. I had families come on here, threaten me, talking about, what are you doing? This doesn't make any sense. How can you support the police? How can you be the police? And I actually had to calm down, SK. I was a big fan of arguing on Facebook. I was a huge fan.
Because that always solves things. Arguing online. That has always been productive there, Mr. Willis.
I will make these controversial posts, and then everybody would get on there. Friends, family, people I went to college with, they would be just mouthing off, and I would be firing back and forth. It was bad to the point where, I would just be on my phone all day, just going back and forth. I've always been a person to be different as far as my way of thinking. I don't always go with the status quo. And I've always been able to just take a step back and see what's really going on. And it just picked up as I got more knowledge. So that's just how I came, out the closet.
Yeah. I mean, I said this to Whitlock a couple weeks ago. I said, it is now amazing in American culture. You now come out of the closet if you say, look, I don't really subscribe to the LGBTQ gay lifestyle. Because when I was growing up, coming out of the closet was this big thing. And but this is how how subtle the infiltration has become is that it used to be that, hey, look, we can't bash gay people. And we're like, you're right, don't assault them. Let them do what they want. So it became about acceptance, which is fine. Live and let live. You fast forward to 2020s, now it is about indoctrination where you're not even allowed to pull your kids out of school if they are teaching them certain things. You become demonized. And I'm like, wow, if you would have told me growing up as a young man in Valencia, California, and then Montebello in the mid 80s, I would have said there's no way, because it's still less than 50 years. 50 years in time is actually throughout history. It's not like 500 years. It's 50 years.
Not that long.
Think about how quick that transformation has taken in the context of time.
Yeah. I mean, if you told me 15 years ago, if I said to you, men can have babies, you would say, sir, go to jail and don't come out. Don't come out to the street, right? Now, we got books and kids. I have 3 boys, right? Fortunately, where I live, they don't do none of that mess in the school, but I'm definitely paying attention to what's going on. But it's going to be a time where eventually they're going to get out there and they're going to have dealing with other kids that parents, they talk about that stuff, right? They're going to be trying to tell them like, yeah, this is right. As a parent, that's crazy that I even have to talk about a man being able to use tampons and being in women's locker rooms and being able to have kids and being able to wear these crazy dresses and these kids coming to these shows with drag queens. And, I get mad at that. I see that. But then again, the parents are taking them there, right? That's crazy. And I get to these athletes because they want to talk about everything else, right? They are big on everything else. They have kids, but yet they don't want to talk about that, right? Bringing kids and having men that's dressed as whip gyrate around in front of 3- and 4-year-olds, 5-year-old little girls, pride parades, pride parades they're having, just a bunch of old naked men walking around in the street. Where are we at in society? And even when we get to the boxing, the Olympics, the young, I guess, lady, male, I don't know.
The individual.
The individual.
The individual.
But there's apparently 2. Right, there's apparently 2, and it's like now they're trying to. There's a shift here and trying to make things work, slide stuff in here. I mean, I felt sorry for the young boxing lady. The first hit she took, she knew immediately, right, that this is not going to work. What did you think about that?
We talked about it. Look, here's the thing that bothers me is that the shifting goalposts and hypocrisy. So their argument is, well, she was born a woman. Well, wait a minute. So is that the standard then?
Yes. That's
so whatever you're born is that we're sticking with, right? We're not changing because that's what they've been doing for about 20 years, right? So then they say, well, the whole thing about the chromosome, and then it became trust the science. Consistency to me is alarming in how people just go along with it. So again, it's either what they're born or it's trust the science. Which is it, guys? I'm willing to do both, but let's have a solid, consistent standard that we go by in judging these things.
Yeah. And piggybacking to RG3. Now, he's a surprise to me. Not really a surprise being foreign, but he was one of the most kind of woke people on his Twitter. Yeah. Because he would be saying a lot of, leftist stuff, left kind of woke ideologies. And I thought he was
so lefty, I started to call him Mark Brunell.
Hey, he did good for us, by the way.
He hit him off. My guy from Miami. They had a good combo in the early 2000s.
Oh, we got a lot of dudes from Miami. We got Moss, we got Portis,
God rest his soul.
Taylor.
Yeah. Dr. McIntosh was a good linebacker for you guys. But no, I believe RG3 was so liberal and democratic, and I think a lot of it was a front for the fact he liked Becky's. He did.
Yeah.
I think that became part of his thing. Like, you know what? I have to be in support of these movements and these causes and be politically aligned because my significant other, white. I think that's all. I do believe that had something to do with it.
But then we get to guys like Kirk, right? I don't know, because he's definitely been one of the ones. He's crying on set. Oh my goodness!
No, remember that?
I can't tell you.
Nobody should get shot. for wearing a hoodie. And I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. Kurt, I know you have white guilt, but that's bad, bro. I was watching that going, oh my God. And I was still on ESPN, so I couldn't say anything. I'm like, I want stuff on Twitter.
Even dudes like Randy Moss, those guys crying on set. As a man, that hit me in a different way. As these guys that don't take initiative to actually go speak to law enforcement. And again, I'm not saying any entity is 100% perfect. There's bad people in all sorts of entities in this world, right? You got bad priests, you got bad teachers, you got bad other stuff, right? I'll say this right now. Some people shouldn't be in law enforcement. You got to have a certain kind of mindset to do police work. Because it's not just going out and answering calls and dealing with the worst of society. There's also other side of that where you got to be a psychologist. You got to be, you got to worry about people's crashes and analyzing vehicles. It's a whole thing that people don't know. Instead of these guys sitting down and sitting with chiefs and talking to these guys, putting on a uniform and say, hey, this is a day-to-day call for 12 hours, 10 hours, 8 hours.
You know what the problem is with a lot of these guys, though, like Ryan Clark? They live in white gated communities.
Oh, yeah.
They do. They actually do not live in the same areas with the people they profess to care about. They don't put one dime into the community in terms of starting a business, which I think is essential. Until you invest into that community and create a real commerce and economy where that dollar is recycled over months, you're going to have the same issues. Here's what I think about Kirk. Kirk, I think, has options beyond ESPN. Remember, he took that deal with Amazon where he gets paid a lot of money to do NFL games on Thursday, right?
Yes.
Another source of income. His brand, and I'm a big college football fan, so I've watched a lot of Kirk Herbstreit. I do have respect for him regardless of that episode. Kirk's a guy that I think has put his time in. He's a respected football guy. No argument. Yeah. I believe that if ESPN would say, you know what, we're going to fire you for these statements, he would land on his feet within 2 seconds.
Yeah.
You're going to sometimes be as courageous as the options you have or the options you create. Kirk has options. He's got more options than Jamel Holloway running the Wishbone.
Yeah. And I'm going to play this video right quick because it's actually pretty bold what he said.
Like, I'm done giving any shits at all about any of it. I've been biting my tongue on a lot of topics for 3 years. I sent a tweet out about something. I happened to see somebody, I think he said, should men be able to play in women's sports? And I just was like, I'm just going to give a quick answer. Ridiculous question, of course not. I didn't realize it would be way more positive than negative. I'm sure people are upset. I think it's kind of a no-brainer.
Now, don't come on here and bullshit me. You had to know that when you put that tweet out, there was going to be a reaction.
I didn't give a shit, though. I don't really give a shit at all. I'm done giving any shits at all about any of it. It's almost like there are two different sets of rules. If you have a view that's a little bit more traditional, or I'm a Christian guy, it's like there's a different set of rules. It's hard to just turn the other cheek time after time after time. So yeah, I didn't really care, and I don't care at all.
SK, I want to hear.
I didn't actually hear the comments. I saw tweets. It's like, and I don't always play everything. This reminds me, and I forgot which manager it was. It was when I was growing up in the kids, when George Steinbrenner was like changing managers, like we change our underwear. Like every year, if someone would get fired, he'd bring back the same guy, like Billy Martin. And there was this one particular manager that got sick and tired of it. And he flat out said, George, fire me. And it was a big like headline in the New York Post. And like this guy was basically saying, hey, you got to pay me anyway. I'm sick of your fire me. And it went on for a while. And the guy was actually relieved that he got let go, and he probably got rehired 2 years later. That's the way it went with the Yankees. I'm just telling you, he'll never admit it. Herbstreit may already have an escape plan or plan A and B.
Yeah.
Seriously, because nobody talks like that at a job that good unless you have a safety net, Mr. Willis. That's my view of it.
So I didn't kind of think of it, the aspect you made, like the statement you made earlier. You're pretty much as bold as your options, pretty much. And, when I heard this, I was like, this is the same guy that was crying on national TV. He works for the probably most woke sports network that's on TV right now. For him to come out and say this, I'm trying to figure out how much trouble is he going to be in?
Or maybe he wants trouble, or as John Lewis said, maybe he wants good trouble. Yeah, anyway. So here's the thing. The thing that's really interesting is you cannot be an advocate for women's sports if you don't speak out on this issue.
Yeah.
If you don't, you're just virtue signaling. You know, when Leah Thomas came out, what I call Marcia Spitz, when she was literally looking like Aquaman or Aquawoman, excuse me, to all these other swimmers, right? So me and Whitlock did a segment, and TJ Moe joined us. He was in studio in Nashville. So I'm preparing for the segment, and you have all of these women's livers on ESPN, like Mina Kimes, Sarah Spain, you know, Elle Duncan, who never said a word about it. Never said a word. And they're the ones who they guilt us into watching WNBA, right? They guilt us into watching anything with women, even though they never do.
Right.
I went to the ESPNW website, which is a website dedicated to women's sports. Now, I think this is a pretty big story if you care about female athletes and women's sports. You know, they never wrote a single word about it at that time about Leah Thomas about 2 years ago.
Sad.
What did that tell you?
Tells me a lot. It tells me a lot. It's people won't speak the truth if it's with this right here. If it's messing with that money, they're not going to. They get there in these positions. They get in these lucrative positions. They got it well. They got a good way of living. And when it comes to actually speaking on something that's a real issue, because by the way, the whole Me Too movement, everybody wanted to speak about that, right? Everybody wanted to speak about Me Too and speak for all women, and all women need protection and that whole thing, right? That didn't last too long, by the way.
Well, it ended right around the time Biden got, I don't want to say fingered, but when they started pointing the finger at him during the election, Me Too became, well, not you though. And so, you know, that died. And like this whole notion, believe all women. How about this? Why don't we believe the damn evidence? I thought that was one of the most dishonest campaigns or agendas I have ever seen. The fact that any individual can get caught up in something that happened 40 to 45 years in their past with no real statute of limitations. I think it's a slippery slope. And that was one of those things. I mean, to me, in terms of what you just talked about, I would argue that the suppression of truth is every bit as bad as a lie.
Oh my goodness, 100%. And what's crazy is some of these women that have claimed, let's just say that they've been assaulted by some of these athletes, and then later it comes out that they made this whole thing up. But that guy's career is ruined. College.
Well, we got two athletes. We had the punter from San Diego State, who should have been exonerated almost immediately. The pitcher for the Dodgers, Trey Bauer. Right? And I'm sure there's other ones. And there was a football player years ago that lost a scholarship, I believe, to USC, played at Long Beach Paul. His life was ruined by it. With no repercussions to those who perpetrated these crimes.
Dawn Staley. She comes out. So apparently someone at BYU said the N-word, right? There's no evidence of that. The police did an investigation and just nothing. There's like nobody in the crowd was in the area heard that. And then she goes and cancels the game. That should be an L for them, right? It should be a loss for them.
I mean, Dawn's in a position of power. She checks a lot of boxes. That's all I can really tell you. I just, you know, like the whole Caitlin Clark thing. You know, it's funny going back to sport. Caitlin Clark really must be playing well. Because there's a lot of people on Twitter that were campaigning for Angel Reese being Rookie of the Year, like she was Biden and then Kamala, who are now saying, I may have to give the white bitch some credit here. Like, you know, they hate to type it out. I mean, her game is so much more refined, but that became a cultural touchstone. It really became this racial issue. And I thought it was interesting that during the Olympics, one of the non-stories that nobody talked about because they didn't care, women's Olympic basketball. There was such little interest in it. They didn't even drug up the story of why is the women's basketball team being ignored? Is it because we don't have Kate? They didn't even do that. They were literally such a non-story They didn't even go with that agenda.
Right. As a basketball guy, I can't tell you the last WNBA game watch, if I even watch. If I did watch one.
Probably end of Love and Basketball.
Oh, no.
Remember when Omar blew out his knee and then he became the stay-at-home father? And then Kunal Lathan, she was playing for the Sparks. I said, okay, that's about as much WNBA as I've ever watched. Okay.
I may have watched a game of the Mystics once or twice, but no, man, I did an episode on Caitlin Clark. Again, I don't watch women's basketball, but the girl can play. I'm not going to take anybody's skills away from her.
She's the one girl that I'll at least watch highlights. She has a game. It looks like a men's game. She's got great floor vision. She handles the ball quickly. Her ability to pass the ball, quick release. It's a very aesthetically pleasing game. Like, look, I don't know if that means she's as good as Asia Wilson, who spells it very, very interesting. A-J-A. I thought it was Ajay. And I'm like, Asia?
It could be Aja or something like that.
Right. But her game is almost like Karl Malone. And look, the bottom line is most people would rather watch Steph Curry than Karl Malone.
Yeah.
The truth.
Well, I'm not going to we've been in this for an hour. So one more thing, man. This guy right here, he went and backtracked. So he did the opposite of her. And he went and backtracked on his stuff. So again, and I bring up the point that you just made, and this will be my last little talking point. You're only as good as your options. You're only as bold as your options. What do you think about this guy retracting? Look, he has a tweet right here. Protect our daughters, right? Everybody should agree with that. All of a sudden, he goes back and said, this doesn't represent the values of the place I work for, and it's some kind of nonsense.
That's scary then. Look, Dan Orlovsky backtracked. He moonwalked more than Michael Jackson did at the 83 Emmy Awards. I mean, my God. Look, and he got skewered for it. And then other people have tried to defend him, saying, no, it was taken out of context. At what context is Protect Our Daughters actually out of context? Honestly, I feel bad for Dan in a sense that you work at a place where you have to do this. And then once you put it, I really think this in a situation like that, if you don't have enough guts to leave it up, don't ever put it up to begin with.
Right.
And he's gotten dragged. And unfortunately, he may not have the options or the willingness to leave ESPN the way Herb Street does. So again, there is a part of me that understands that guy's got a family to feed. I get it. That's his living. He may not have a great real estate portfolio. He just may be living check to check. I doubt that. But he couldn't take the heat, and he never should have gotten the kitchen.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. SK, man, thank you for an hour of your time. I enjoyed this. I mean, I don't know about you, but I think we just became best friends right now. So thank you for being on the show with me, man. This was awesome. Just tell everybody if they don't know you by now about the podcast, where they can find you, and anything else you want to close out with.
Yeah, I do the 3 knockdown rules, really more or less a boxing show with a little bit of pop culture thrown in at the end with Mario Lopez. Yes, that one, AC Slater. It's called, the 3 knockdown rule. You can find it on all your podcast platforms, and you could punch it up on YouTube at the number 3 knockdown rule. I am also a regular contributor to Fearless with Jason Whitlock, about anywhere from 3 to 4 times a week, depending on the schedule that they set. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, Steve Kim 323, and then on Instagram I'm Steve Orale, O-R-A-L-E Kim, kind of an ode to my Mexican East LA roots. Shout out to Montebello High School. And I write twice a week a boxing column for snack.com, snac.com, owned by Victor Conte. Yes, the Victor Conte from Balco. Okay, yes, the notorious VIC. It's called K9's Corner. So that's basically what I do.
That's awesome, man. Again, thank you, SK, for giving me. They took my black card away, so you gave me the yellow card. So I appreciate
like soccer. That. You got the yellow card. It's like soccer, man. Like soccer.
The hair is looking great, man. I respect it, man. I like it. Thank you for being on the show. Thank you for your time. We got to do this again.
Absolutely, we'll do it again.
I appreciate
you. Have a
it.
great day. Appreciate you.
All right, brother. You take care. Again, this is another episode of What You Talk About, Willis. Thank you guys so much for being a part of this. That was a great episode with my man SK. Like, subscribe, and share. Remember, listen, what we do here is we cause chaos one truth at a time. And y'all stay safe.